This is Carl Ackerman, host of History is Here to Help, and today we are fortunate to have Judy Cramer. Again, we're here and lucky to have Judy Cramer, the Executive Director of Youth Service Hawaii, and we're really focusing on the history of this organization and what this organization does. And without further ado, let me ask Judy the first question. And Judy, what's the history of Youth Service Hawaii, and how did you get started in this wonderful organization dedicated to service learning?
Well, we started in the 1990s. Carl, you probably know the exact date in which that happened because Carl and from Punahou, a man called Russell Motter from Iolani and myself from Kamehameha got together and decided that it would be a really great thing to promote service and service learning in the schools as part of the curriculum, as way in which they can attach service to the curriculum. So when we got together, we started actually in the Honolulu Holly, as I remember. And I think it was Jeremy Harris. Was that right, Carl, that we were with Jeremy Harris in our launching of Youth Service Hawaii? At that time, it was called Teachers and Students at Work for Hawaii, TASA, which was a very fancy and great name that Carl came up with. And so it was something that we started more than 20 years ago. And we are still in existence, and we still continue to promote service and service learning in the schools. So anything else, Carl, that you can add to that?
I think it'll be interesting for people watching this to first find out a little bit about you, Judy, because you have an interesting, going back all the way to your Maui days, because you were the executive director of Youth Service Hawaii, and what you do is promote this service learning organization as its executive director. And so I think the audience would be really interested in your own personal journey.
Okay, well, I am a product of a public school system. I came from Maui, Lahaina, Maui, and went to Lahaina High School, which has its own very, very rich history. Very first high school west of the Rockies, and went to that school, decided to go to University of Hawaii and then University of Arizona, did a whole bunch of service there. And when I came back, I was actually hired by Kamehameha in Arizona to teach at Kamehameha schools. So from there, Kamehameha is very big on service. So from there, I just had an heart for service and started off as just one of the founding members with Carl for the service learning Youth Service Hawaii, then TASA, and continued to do service and service learning, did a whole bunch of service learning projects, as well as did a service learning conference that was on different places, Punahou and Kamehameha, and one time at in KCC in Kapiolani Community College. So we've done a lot of different service and service learning activities that promote service learning in the schools, and continue to do that.
That's a great history. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you were in charge of service learning at Kamehameha Kapalama campus. And in addition, I think your wonderful head of school, Michael Chun, or president, allowed Youth Service Hawaii to have an office there. I just wanted to see if that was all, if my aging process hasn't overcome the truth.
That is very true. Yes, I forgot about that. At one time, I'm actually for Kamehameha, an elementary school teacher. However, for 1 year, I was assigned to build a program that would promote service and service learning at Kamehameha schools, as well as giving people who are not in the classroom opportunities to do service, whether it be for the school or for the Hawaiian population, but to have people become service-minded at Kamehameha schools. And that I did that for 1 year as a project, and then went back into the classroom. Michael Chun, wonderful headmaster for quite a while, was a big proponent for service and service learning at Kamehameha. And at one time, we had an office. I was not executive director then, but there was an office in which another executive director held their office. And he did it, Kamehameha very generously allowed us to be there free of charge. And so it was wonderful to be able to work out of that office, because Mike Chun was such a great champion of service and service learning, especially in the classrooms. Yeah, so it was wonderful to have him there as a supporter.
So, Judy, what do you mean by service learning? And could you give us an example of a project that you Service Hawaii has supported?
Well, service learning is a way of making learning meaningful. It is very wonderful. It's project-based. So teachers know the idea of project-based learning. Sometimes it's called PBL. Service learning is project-based, but not all project-based is service learning, because in order for it to be service learning, it has to have a service component, serving the community, whether it be the community of the school or the community, the lahui, the community at large, or community, or even the environment. So the service learning has a service component to project-based learning. So we want to have project-based learning and service learning because we want, at this time, teachers are very stressed, mainly because of things that happened with COVID and trying to get back to teaching in the environment that we have now. So service learning is a way of teaching your curriculum and not having it as an add-on, but it is not an adding, it's an enhancement of your curriculum so that kids can find what they're learning very meaningful. They understand what they're learning and why they're learning it, because it's attached to some kind of project that they're going to implement or are implementing at the time. And it will have a service component, so they will feel like they're stepping outside of themselves and giving back to their community, whether it be the school again, or their home community, their island community, or even the world.
So, lots of organizations, churches, the YMCA, organize projects for kids to do. And they go and they may serve, our homeless shelter in Hawaii, IHS and stuff like that. How do you distinguish service learning from community service?
Again, service learning has some kind of tie into your curriculum. So, for example, we've had the one that to me that we have funded because Youth Service Hawaii has grants. And we're grant schools money so that they can carry on their project. So one grant that we funded was with, I think, Prosy Elementary. Anyway, this second grade classroom decided to bring to so moving back, one of the things about service learning is, and project-based learning is, meeting an actual need. So when they were polled, the students decided that one of the problems of their school was that there was feral cats that were in their school, and these feral cats would do their business in their sandboxes, in the places that they played, in their playground, and the kids were wanting to have the cats not do that, but they had some parameters for this. They did not want to kill the cats. They didn't want to capture the cats and take them away. They just wanted the cats to not do their business, their bodily function businesses in their school. So they did some research, and here's where the curriculum comes in. They learned how to do research. They learned how to write letters to a business to get monies for plants. They learned from various, I don't know if they did at the Humane Society, to find out how they can ward off the cats from coming to their campus. So they found out through research that there were some plants that they could plant in which the cats would then not like them, so that they would not come and they would not stay and do their business in their sandboxes or on their playground. So the kids in this project, they learned how to do research. They learned how to write letters to say Home Depot to get plants. They learned about how much things cost. They learned about, so they did some math, and they did some writing. They did some English. They learned how to do letter writing. They learned how to do all kinds of different activities that was tied into their curriculum. They would have learned about it anyway, but then now it was something that was meaningful to them because it was attached to something they wanted to do. They wanted the cats to not come. So they planted these plants, and the last I know that these plants were growing, and hopefully the cats have decided not to go back into their campus. So seeing that there is tie into the curriculum, and the teachers and the students were very, very excited about this project. So besides learning, they were also excited about what they were doing and their learning.
Is there any time for the kids to ponder about the significance of their what they had done? And it's interesting that you noted that it was it was pre-planned in the sense that the kids really thought this was an important thing to do. And is there any time, afterwards for the kids to kind of ponder about the effect of what they did, whether they were successful or not, and things like that, of that nature?
Yes. In service learning, there's a lot of reflection time. So there's reflection time throughout the project. So they in the beginning, they do a reflection on whether, they might have gotten a whole bunch of different ideas for projects, and then they had to reflect on which project they wanted and why they wanted that project. So they had to do some reflection for that. They had to do reflection on their learning. What did they learn? They learned about math. They learned about letter writing. They learned about researching. So then a reflection on that. So the reflection was on their learning. The last one is reflection on the impact they had on their community. So they might have taken a not an evaluation, but a survey of their campus and said, okay, how do you like now cats not coming to our school to do their business? So then they would get feedback, and then they would reflect on how they impacted their school, their peers, their teachers, and the property of their school. So there's a lot of reflection in the beginning, throughout the project, as well as after the project was done, and how they're feeling about the impact that they made because of the project that they did.
Thank you, Judy. And what's unique about Youth Service Hawaii, if you read about it, and of course, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you can go to Youth Service Hawaii online, and you can make a donation, or you can find out more about service learning, et cetera, et cetera. But what's unique about your executive directorship, Judy, is that you also have a way of teaching youth about philanthropy, about contributing to the greater community through in a philanthropic way. And so I was wondering if you'd spend some time talking about your philanthropy board.
Yes. One of the things about Youth Service Hawaii is that we want student voice. So one of the good things about this project of the second graders was that it was the students who came up with the problem and the project that they felt that they wanted to do. We have this thing called the Youth Philanthropy Board. It's made up of high school students, ages 14 to 18, from the public and private schools. They apply. They have an application. They have to write a little bit about why they want to be on the board and so forth. We look at the applications, and then we invite students to come on our board. Right now, we have 6 students on our board, made up from students from private and public schools, and their job is to evaluate grants. In order for them to do that, we have to educate them on what is service learning, what are the standards of service learning, what is a good service learning project. So after a person gets invited to become part of the Youth Philanthropy Board, then there is a workshop in which we teach them about service learning standards. We teach them what makes a good service learning project. We teach them about what the Be the Change grant, which is the grant that teachers and students can apply for monies for their project. We teach them about what is included in that grant. And then we also talk to them about a rubric for what makes a good service learning project. And the rubric has many different aspects to it. So the students in the Youth Philanthropy Board have learned about what is service learning, what does that mean, what are the standards, what makes a good service learning project, and then they evaluate. So once they have gone through and learned about service learning and about writing grants, whatever applications come in, grant applications come in from the Be the Change grant, which is something that is on our Youth Service Hawaii website. Any teacher, students who need monies to fund their projects can go to the website and apply for a grant up to $1,000. Once the applications come in, then we send the applications to the YPB board members, and they then evaluate using the rubric that we've taught them about in the workshop to evaluate the grants, the grant applications. And they score on various different components, meaningful service, tied to the curriculum, impact to the community, and so forth. And they then give the application a score. Once every Youth Philanthropy Board member gives a score to a grant application, then they come together and they talk about and they collaborate, and they talk about what score they gave. Now, if a grant application, the scores are, the discrepancy between the scores are so big, more than 2 points away, it's a 4-point score. They then have to justify, each board member then has to justify why they gave a score in a certain category to the grant application. In there, there's collaboration, there's talk, there's give and take. They have to consider the great thing, for these are now 14 to 18-year-olds. They have to consider and listen to each other, consider another Youth Philanthropy Board member's position and why they gave a certain score. They also have to justify their own score and be able to say why their score was, why they gave that score. And then they decide, and they have to then give and take, and then they decide, okay, I understand now why you gave that score, and maybe now I'm starting to agree with you, or nope, I still feel like this is the score that I want. And then if that's the case, a person then has to really be able to convince another board member that the score that they gave was the right score. That way, kids are listening to each other. They are, they really have to give and take. They have to really think about why people's scores are the way they are. They have to be able to understand where another person is coming from. Some really great skills that they're learning, communication skills that they're learning in this little time together. And then once people are really comfortable and they agree yes or no that this project can be funded, then I contact the school and the teachers that sent in the grant, and then we let them know yes or no that they got funded or not. And if they didn't, we can always say, you can always do it again. You can always tweak it for a later time and resubmit it at another time. So we're wanting to be very supportive of people who do grants, who do write grant applications, because we do want to fund their projects. That is the Youth Philanthropy Board. They also keep in touch with the people, the grantees, and say how they're doing. They're sort of like the in-between person. They're like a facilitator of the communication between Youth Service Hawaii and the grantees. And then at the very end, we have a small little celebration in various ways to celebrate the ending of the projects.
So that was really wonderful, Judy, because what you described was the rationale for service learning is really a wonderful thing to help build character, but also provide service in the community. And then you went on and you described the Youth Philanthropy Board, which really has the power to grant up to $1,000 for service learning projects that one can find on the Youth Service Hawaii website. And so all of this is really great. But I mean, the other thing that you described, which I think is something that all of us in Hawaii would appreciate, is the fact that these students have to demonstrate a lot of different skills, but the most important thing that you emphasized was listening to others and trying to come up with a common agreement. And I'm sure these grants are approved by your adult board too. But I think it's really wonderful, the steps that you have outlined today in the about Youth Service Hawaii. And my last question for you is, what brought you personally to service learning? What was your philosophical or maybe religious motivations for engaging in service learning and then becoming the executive director of one of the few places in the United States and the world that's dedicated to service learning, and one of the few places and in the world that trains kids how to do philanthropy?
Well, there's two things about this. want to give kids the skills and the power to make good decisions. And so one of the things is student voice is very important. And hopefully we've guided students to have different kinds of activities or different kinds of engagements that allow them to develop their communication skills that we talked about. Also, we want these kids, as well as the people who actually do the projects, to be civically engaged and civically responsible. We want to develop kids at a very young age, up until whatever age that that we have them, to be thinking about civics and to be engaged always in their community, within their whether it be in their schools or in their community, in the larger community. But we want kids to continue to be engaged and have a voice in decisions that are being made, so that people will listen, and they will listen to people, so that we now can decide that youth have a place in decision making. And so in developing these kinds of skills, hopefully they will have some really good ways to develop and become civic-minded people.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I would like to allow Judy Cramer from Youth Service Hawaii to get the last word in. And so if there's anything you'd like to add in our last less than 40 seconds, Judy, it's your time.
Service learning, and I found out that it's all about relationships. And so relationships is so important. And if we can develop relationships and develop kids and students who are able to have relationships with people, either relationships with people, relationships with the aina, with the land, relationships within the community, that people will continue to be engaged, and people will realize that we're not so different, and that we can have ways in which we can learn about each other.
Thank you, Judy Cramer, Executive Director of Youth Service Hawaii. And again, this is Carl Ackerman, host, and reporting out from Kamuela, Hawaii, on the Big Island, at the wonderful school, Hawaiian Immersion School, Kanu. Thank you very much, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.